Electronic coffee maker coffee harmful to your body. For many people, that rich steaming cup of coffee is an essential part of getting the day off on the right foot. And we've learned that drinking coffee, not in excess, can actually be good for your health. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2012 showed that people who drink coffee live longer than those who don't, provided they don't smoke. Plastic coffee makers like these could be hazardous to your health. Of course, nothing is ever simple. What kind of coffee should you drink? Fair trade and organic are of course the best for you and the planet. But toxins can get into your coffee from another source you may not have given much thought to, your coffee maker. While trying to choose from the various types and preparation methods available as brewing coffee has become something of a contemporary art form, maybe you haven't considered whether the coffee maker itself is toxic. Many drinkers have noticed an odd plastic taste in their coffee immediately after buying a new coffee maker. That's a sign that something is getting into your coffee that's not coming from the beans. More and more information is emerging about how plastic containers of various types can shed chemicals into whatever it is they contain, especially when that something is a hot liquid. Bisphenol A, BPA, an endocrine disruptor that could lead to reproductive issues such as infertility and even some types of cancers, has been found in a variety of plastic items as well as the lining of canned foods. As this information has become more widely known, many manufacturers of products that come into contact with food are removing BPA from plastic. That includes the makers of some plastic coffee pots, which are advertising BPA-free products. But many plastic coffee makers aren't labeled, so there's no way of knowing if they are BPA-free. And companies that promote that their products are BPA-free may be replacing that chemical with another that's equally bad for you. The safest thing to do is to look for a coffee maker with no plastic parts, or at least none that come into contact with the pot's contents. That might mean rethinking how you make your coffee. While single-serve and drip brewing coffee makers are the most convenient, those are the ones most likely to be made primarily of plastic. But there are other types of coffee making systems that tend to be made of glass and stainless steel, much safer choices if you're worried about bad chemicals in your coffee. That old-fashioned percolator your mom used is one of those. If she didn't throw it out after buying a new plastic one, appropriate it. These vintage-style metal coffee pots may look clunky, but they're generally safe, as long as they are stainless steel and not lined with aluminum. Plenty of new ones are on the market if you can't find mom's. Many of the trendy new ways of brewing coffee also utilize plastic-free equipment also. With their glass carafes and stainless steel mesh filters, sleek French press coffee makers generally bypass plastic entirely. The process is more complicated than plug-in and brew coffee pots. But if making your morning coffee is a leisurely ritual for you, it's a perfect solution, and many people swear the taste of the finished cup is far superior. There are some well-known coffee makers on the market that are plastics-free. One is the all-glass coffee pot produced by Chemex. Created nearly 75 years ago, the Chemex pot has won design awards and is on permanent display at New York City's Museum of Modern Art. It features a heat-resistant, non-porous glass carafe, a wooden collar, a natural paper filter, and no plastic. Porcelain is another alternative to plastic. Volker's German-made coffee machines and cup filters are among the best known, their design requiring neither a paper filter nor a metal sieve. Like the Chemex pots, they have a long history, going back over 100 years. And like Chemex, Volker promotes the superior taste their process offers. It might be a little more work, but with the assurance that no bad chemicals are leaching into your coffee, it might be worth it. How I discovered a coffee pot was making my patient sick. The evidence for the health benefits of coffee may be growing, but what if your coffee pot were contributing to chronic disease? A recent patient of mine fit this picture. She was having troublesome symptoms that looked classically perimenopausal, but also suffered from a worsening skin condition that left bumps on her shins. She asked me if there might be a common cause. I listened carefully for clues: food sensitivities, a low vitamin D level, uterine fibroids, an autoimmune disease. I ordered tests and asked her to begin an elimination diet, avoiding wheat, dairy, soy, citrus, and eggs, and keep a symptom record. I also gave her my environmental handout, which covers a wide range of recommendations like avoiding artificial fragrances and insecticides. 12 days later, when I called to check in, she exclaimed, "I think I figured it out. It's the coffee." My patient was savvy about environmental chemical exposures. She regularly consulted the Skin Deep website and carried around a stainless steel water bottler filled with water she filtered at home. However, just about the time her symptoms began, she had hired a new employee who brought her old, electric coffee maker with her to work. She'd gotten into the habit of drinking a cup each afternoon. After our office visit, she suspected it might be the pot. As the hot, acidic coffee passed through the plastic tubing, could it be leaching BPA and phthalates? To test out her theory, she replaced the pot with a glass French press. What happened next was astounding. Her periods went back to normal and her skin symptoms disappeared. Does this give you pause? It did me. It would have been so easy to see this as a simple story of a challenging menopause transition. Instead, it raises a big question. How much chronic disease might due to such seemingly trivial exposures. In January, a study published in PLOS linked environmental chemical exposure with early menopause. This study suggests a connection between the ubiquitous chemicals we're exposed to and our health. Other studies support this concept, such as a 2014 research study showing BPA in the liners of canned beverages increases blood pressure. Healthcare providers generally are not taught to consider common household items as a potential cause of disease, but perhaps we should be. BPA is a known endocrine disruptor. Research evidence links BPA exposure with early puberty, infertility, breast cancer, and abnormal periods. It has also been tied to obesity, prostate cancer, and neurodevelopmental problems in children. The National Health and Nutrition Survey, NONS, found that obese adults are likely to have higher levels of BPA in their urine. While we can metabolize and rid our bodies of BPA rapidly, we are so frequently exposed to it in plastic food containers, can liners, and cash register receipts that our levels remain high. In the US, the CDC periodically samples the urine of people participating in NONS and has found BPA in 92% of those sampled. And lest you think BPA-free is the answer, the substitute plastics which contain bisphenol S or other resins appear to be equally hazardous. Of course, my patient's story is not a randomized controlled trial, and one might argue that it was a coincidence that she got better when she switched to the French press. In medicine, the gold standard for assessing an allergic reaction is to test, eliminate, and retest. I hadn't wanted to ask my patient to do this, but as life would have it, she did it on her own. Recently, she sent me an email to say that she had heated up a frozen meal in a plastic bowl. I know. She wrote, and within 2 hours the bumps on her skin had returned. While there are numerous root causes of chronic disease, many scientists believe that we are all on a continuum of sensitivity with respect to the chemicals in our environment, which explains why one person may get sick while others can tolerate high exposures with little effect. As health professionals, how are we to determine whether these exposures are playing a role in the obesity, high blood pressure, cancers, infertility, thyroid disease, and neurodevelopmental diseases of childhood that fill our offices? We have not been trained to consider BPA or other environmental exposures as causes of disease. How many of us ask our patients about their use of plastic bottles and food storage containers, canned foods, or exposure to receipts? How many pediatricians talk to parents about BPA as a possible contributor to pediatric obesity? The EPA, which we would hope could protect us, seems hopelessly mired in unreachable standards of proof. While we may not have expected to use a medical school education to discuss plastic bottles or Tupperware, we are on the front lines, and unlike U.S. government agencies, we are free to use the precautionary principles higher bar in our care of patients. While we can't prescribe away all environmental exposures, and we badly need new national policies, we can encourage sensible precautions. Some of them are very effective. For example, when children eat an organic diet, the levels of pesticides in their urine become undetectable. There are many resources available for clinicians to learn how to take a better environmental history and to learn the common environmental triggers of disease, including the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry and the Collaborative on Health and the Environment. The University of Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine, where I serve as executive director, has a free 6-hour online continuing medical education course. Meanwhile, patients shouldn't wait for a doctor to tell them to take stock of their exposures. Endocrine disrupting effects, like the hormones they mimic, arise from doses measurable at parts per billion. So do not be mollified when someone tells you the amount of chemical in a product is very small. Be a detective, don't settle too easily with a diagnosis if the label doesn't make sense to you. Try minimizing your exposures for 3 to 4 weeks and notice any changes in your symptoms. Is coffee good for you? Health benefits, disadvantages, and more. When people think of coffee, they usually think of its ability to provide an energy boost. However, according to some research, it can also offer some other important health benefits. Such benefits may include a lower risk of liver cancer, type 2 diabetes, and heart failure. Worldwide, experts estimate that people consume around 2.25 billion cups of coffee per day. Researchers have looked at the benefits of drinking coffee for conditions such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and liver disease. There is evidence to support some, but not all, of these claims. Coffee contains a number of useful nutrients, including riboflavin, vitamin B2, niacin, vitamin B3, magnesium, potassium, and various phenolic compounds, or antioxidants. Some experts suggest that these and other ingredients in coffee can benefit the human body in various ways. Type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, liver disease, and liver cancer. Coffee consumption may also support cardiovascular health. The sections below cover these benefits in more detail. Coffee and diabetes. Coffee may help protect against type 2 diabetes. In 2014, Researchers who gathered data on over 48,000 people found that those who increased their coffee consumption by at least 1 cup per day over 4 years had an 11% lower risk of type 2 diabetes than those who did not increase their intake. A 2017 meta-analysis trusted source concluded that people who drank 4 to 6 cups of either caffeinated or decaffeinated coffee each day appeared to have a lower risk of metabolic syndrome, including type 2 diabetes, coffee and Parkinson's disease. Various studies have suggested that caffeine, which is present in coffee and many other beverages, may help protect against Parkinson's disease. One team concluded that men who drink over 4 cups of coffee per day might have a 5-fold lower risk of Parkinson's disease than those who do not. The findings of the 2017 meta-analysis trusted source suggested a link between coffee consumption and a lower risk of Parkinson's disease, even among people who smoke. This team also found that people who drink coffee may be less likely to experience depression and cognitive conditions such as Alzheimer's disease. However, there was not enough evidence to prove that drinking decaffeinated coffee helps prevent Parkinson's disease, coffee and chronic liver disease or cancer. In 2019, a literature review trusted source concluded that coffee intake is likely to reduce the risk of liver cancer. Earlier, in 2015, a cohort study of a multi-ethnic population in the United States suggested that depending on the dose, consuming 2 to 3 cups of coffee daily reduced the participants' risk of developing hepatocellular carcinoma and chronic liver disease, CLD, by 38% and 46% trusted source, respectively. The meta-analysis from 2017 trusted source also concluded that consuming any type of coffee appears to reduce the risk of liver cancer, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and cirrhosis. These findings are now bolstered by a 2021 study trusted source suggesting that consuming all types of coffee may offer some protection against CLD, coffee and other liver diseases. People who consume coffee may also have a lower risk of gallstone disease. In 2014, researchers looked at coffee consumption among people with primary sclerosing cholangitis, PSC, and primary biliary cirrhosis, PBC. These are autoimmune conditions that affect the bile ducts in the liver. They found that people with PSC were more likely trusted source to have a lower coffee intake than those without the condition. There was no evidence to suggest that coffee intake was different among people with or without PBC. See also, another 2014 study suggested a link between coffee consumption and a lower risk of dying from non-viral hepatitis-related cirrhosis. The researchers suggested that drinking 2 or more cups of coffee every day might reduce the risk by 66% trusted source. Coffee and heart health. The 2017 meta-analysis trusted source found that caffeine consumption may have at least a small benefit for cardiovascular health, including blood pressure. In a 2018 study, researchers found that drinking 3 to 5 cups of coffee per day may reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease by 15%. Drinking 1 to 5 cups daily also seemed to be associated with lower overall mortality resulting from any cause. For those people who have already experienced a heart attack, drinking coffee does not appear to increase their risk of experiencing another or dying as a result. The 2017 meta-analysis, however, also found that there may be higher levels of blood lipids, fat, and cholesterol in people who consume more coffee. These substances may predispose a person to heart problems. Coffee and obesity. There is some evidence suggesting that consuming coffee may help people lose weight. One 2018 paper trusted source indicated that the more coffee the participants drank, the higher their mean reduction in weight, body mass index, BMI, and fat mass. A 2019 study trusted source suggested that drinking coffee may have a modest association with weight loss, with a greater association in men than in women. However, these results have not been replicated, so they may not be definitive. Although coffee may provide some benefits in reducing obesity, it is not a substitute for eating a balanced diet and exercising often. Nutritional value. 100 milliliters, about 3.3 ounces, Oz, of regular black coffee, without milk or cream, is low in calories. That is about 1 typical cup of black coffee, and it only contains around 2 calories. However, adding cream or sugar will increase the calorific value. Coffee beans also contain polyphenols, which are a type of antioxidant. Antioxidants can help protect the body against free radical damage. Free radicals are a type of waste product that the body naturally produces as a result of certain processes. Free radicals act as toxins in the body and may cause inflammation. Scientists have found links between inflammation and various aspects of metabolic syndrome, including type 2 diabetes and obesity. In 2018, some researchers' trusted source suggested that the antioxidant content of coffee may offer protection from metabolic syndrome. Although scientists can prove that certain compounds are present in coffee beans, it remains unclear what happens to them once they enter the human body. Risks. Drinking a lot of coffee can also have some adverse effects. Trusted source. These may include the following. Bone fractures. Some studies have suggested that women who drink a lot of coffee may have a higher risk of bone fractures. Men with a higher coffee intake, on the other hand, appear to have a slightly lower risk. Complications during pregnancy. Coffee consumption may also not be safe during pregnancy. In fact, there is some evidence to suggest a link between high coffee consumption and pregnancy loss, low birth weight, and preterm birth. Endometriosis. There may be a higher risk of endometriosis among women who drink coffee, but there is not enough evidence to confirm such a link. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. People who drink a lot of coffee may have a slightly higher risk of this condition. Anxiety. Consuming high amounts of caffeine may increase the risk. Trusted source of anxiety, especially among people with panic disorder or social anxiety disorder. Less commonly, caffeine may trigger mania and psychosis in those who are susceptible. Mental health conditions. One study from 2016 trusted source concluded that a high intake of caffeine during adolescence could lead to permanent changes in the brain. The scientists behind the study expressed concern that this could increase the risk of anxiety-related conditions in adulthood. Exposure to toxic ingredients. In 2015, a group of researchers found relatively high levels of mycotoxins in commercial coffee. Mycotoxins are toxic substances that can contaminate coffee as a natural product. Some people worry that acrylamide, which is another chemical present in coffee, may be dangerous. Find out more here. Side effects. Although consuming caffeine may offer some benefits, there can be negative side effects if a person drinks too much of it. These side effects may include adverse interactions with particular medications such as certain psychiatric drugs, thyroid medications, heartburn drugs, and antibiotics. Possible spinal bone loss in women who drink more than 300 milligrams mg per day and who do not consume enough calcium. Gastrointestinal problems. An increase in blood pressure. An increase in the risk of myocardial ischemia, which is a type of heart disease, if a person consumes coffee during exercise. Fertility difficulties. Trusted source. Negative effects on a growing fetus, such as low birth weight, if a person consumes a large amount of coffee during pregnancy. Irritability and insomnia in nursing infants, if a person consumes coffee during lactation. Dehydration, but this is not conclusive and may be limited. Trusted source to excessive caffeine consumption. Worsened symptoms of certain mental health conditions, such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. An increased risk of suicide. Coffee-specific disorders. Trusted source, which include caffeine intoxication, or overdose, caffeine-induced anxiety disorder, caffeine-induced sleep disorder, or insomnia, caffeine-related disorder not otherwise specified. Coffee versus tea. Both coffee and tea contain caffeine, so they may have some of the same benefits, risks, and side effects. However, although the amount of caffeine in each beverage can depend on the type of coffee or tea, generally, 1 8-ounce cup of coffee contains about 95 milligrams of caffeine. Similar-sized cups of black and green tea contain only 48 milligrams and 29 milligrams of caffeine, respectively. There may be some differences in the way that drinking tea and coffee may impact different people, depending on which beverage they prefer and how much of it they consume. According to a 2018 study that compared the positive effects of coffee and tea consumption, the differences in benefits are as follows. Coffee. Coffee may decrease the risk of mortality from heart disease and cancer, specifically in women. Coffee may also decrease the risk of respiratory mortality, specifically in men. Women who drink only coffee or up to 40%. Trusted source. Tea may have the lowest overall mortality from various conditions, but those who drink higher percentages of tea may have a higher mortality risk. Tea may decrease the risk of mortality from heart disease and cancer, specifically in men. Also, men who drink 30 to 50% tea may have the lowest mortality risk compared with those who only drink coffee. The overall conclusion of the study is that coffee and tea both have their own benefits depending on the quantity consumed, and these benefits may vary among men and women. The difference in impact based on sex may be related to how coffee affects sex hormones. Summary. The meta-analysis from 2017 trusted source concluded that it is generally safe for most people to consume 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day and that doing so may actually reduce the risk of certain health conditions. The study authors warned, however, that smoking may cancel out any benefits of drinking coffee. Caffeine is an important feature of coffee, but coffee contains many compounds, and there are different ways of drinking it. This makes it difficult to determine exactly how coffee affects a person and which components have benefits and risks. A person who wishes to derive health benefits from coffee consumption should avoid exceeding the daily recommended intake and try to monitor the ingredients they add, such as sugar, cream, and flavorings, as these may not be healthy. Pregnant people and those at risk of bone fractures may wish to avoid coffee.